I just sent the channel. Let me read it. I'll send case right before I speak.
We're gonna just how to divide my paper. How many contentions you guys are having?
So find out.
And what's yours too?
2.5.
Okay, so we're ready.
And for this one, I'm reading emission spectator.
Well, and there's always the thing. As long as all the competitors agree that they can be allowed and you guys are fine with it, then spectators are.
Oh, okay.
I think we're good to start whenever.
Just a bit. If you like 1 minute, just a brief, I'll be quick.
Okay. Wait, was it sent?
Yeah, it was nice.
I didn't get it.
You can get it yet.
I got the like good luck. I didn't get the
Oh, yeah,
dot.
yeah. I'll send case in just a second.
Okay. Can we get started as soon as possible?
Yeah.
I didn't get the email check.
You can get it. Did your partner get it?
Yeah, I got it. He has a school email because his main email is like full of.
Bro, why do you need to? Is it clear?
But wait, here, let me.
Sure,
Let me just see, make sure I type the right email.
Yeah, mine looks open.
Yeah. No, it's like it's a Google Star. Yeah, it should be.
That is your school email, right?
Yeah.
FUSD thing.
Got it. Okay.
You got it? Okay. Just in case. Let me know if you get it. And I'll just try it.
What'd you say?
Yes.
I have a copy. Yeah. I got it.
Do my judges quick, please?
Yeah.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Dennis Pichu. Speaking first for side negation, pronounced SB. Just reading constructive. Start with a quick overview. McKee 24 finds the accession process to join the EU takes around 10 years, and that's for countries that actively want to join the bloc and accept all its rules. Britain, a country that has already caused enough chaos, will be negotiating something even more complicated with partners who are sick of us. Contention 1 is Gulf trade. International Trade 22 finds, as the world's second largest services exporter, the UK is well placed to support economic growth in the Gulf. And the GCCs, or the Gulf Cooperation Councils, FTA and the UK amounted to £16 billion in 2020, and the GCC's digital transition presents a great opportunity for the UK's pioneering digital sector. By securing the Gulf, we could foster conditions of innovation, supporting jobs for UK workers. Saudi Arabia, the largest economy in the GCC, already supports 120,000 UK jobs. And bilateral's 25 finds, the UK government projects that the FTA could increase trade by 16%, adding $10.85 billion annually and boosting GDP by up to £3.1 billion annually, increasing workers' wage by $1.1 billion. And Magalus 25 finds that foreign investment in Saudi Arabia crossed a 3 trillion threshold, giving the UK access to over 3 trillion in funding. But by staying out of the European Union, the UK is able to maintain relations with Gulf countries without being forced to go through the EU, who have historically failed to create trade relations with the Gulf. Going to Messioni 25, the EU and the GCC started trade talks 35 years ago, but the talks were formally suspended in 2008. If Britain re-enters the European Union, these two worlds collide. The UK would be bound by the EU's policies preventing Gulf trade. Contention 2 is regulatory whiplash, and there's no opt-outs the second time we join. Beg 18 finds rejoining the EU means accepting the euro, being a part of the Schengen zone, foregoing the rebate, and adopting EU rules, which the UK was initially granted for as exemptions. And it's less palatable to the UK voters. Polls prove. Henley 25 finds the 4 largest EU nations, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, supported the UK being allowed to rejoin, but asked when Britain should be allowed back in on the same conditions as when it left, numbers changed significantly. Barely 1/5 actually agreed. Now, it also decks public support. Smith 25 finds 54% of Britons support rejoining the European Union, but when asked in isolation, the figure falls to just 36% in the event that rejoining would require the UK to forego its previous opt-out. But this causes uncertainty. Wolf 24 finds rejoining would create a host of new damaging uncertainties, and with unpredictable outcomes, the UK would look deranged for business. It would be a nightmare, and it diverts attention and energy away from tackling many other economic challenges. Going on, negotiations also harm trade. Alejandro Graziano 18 finds Brexit uncertainty impacts extend beyond just the UK and the EU. Large regime shifts have large negative impacts on trade flows and trade participation. Policy uncertainty over trade agreements threatens the very existence of trade, and it leads to disintegration. Brexit uncertainty initially induced a net exit of traded products and reduction in the UK-EU bilateral trade flows. Empirics also prove. Do 25 finds Brexit uncertainty led to a 9.2% annual reduction in UK services exports, a loss of $146.8 billion, and Brexit-related uncertainty disproportionately affected small and medium-sized enterprises. And research highlights a critical role of transparent and predictable regulatory frameworks. Firms have been less likely to start exporting, and those who were already exporting have reduced their export intensity. It causes an EU-wide recession, with 225 finds a recession is not imminent right now, but still there's huge uncertainty around the final outcome of a trade war, and a prolonged standoff over time erodes its economic momentum, raising recession risk. And despite a trade war, we do not expect a Eurozone recession, but the UK and the EU are working towards a mutually beneficial deal right now, and cooperation is going good. Algo 25 finds 45% closer ties without rejoining, and on this fragile consensus, Starmer and Leyen have begun cracking relationships. Driven by necessity, progress is already made without reopening the wound of EU membership. Unfortunately, forcing will kill current cooperation. McGee 24, the politics of rejoining is incredibly fragile. Moving too fast would kill any progress the government makes with Brussels. Thus, we negate.
Okay, cool. I just sent the case, so should be start whenever we want. Have you guys received? Okay, judges, did you all receive it? Okay, my time will start, I'm Ronald Park, I'm the first speaker for American JP. This is the 4-minute constructive. My time will start in 3, 2, 1. The more, the merrier. We're stronger together. Our first contention is econ. The gold market is growing at an unprecedented rate. Foster 25. Gold in 2025 has defied economic logic, reaching true record highs. Gold is no longer just a hedge against inflation, it's now a hedge against geopolitical instability. Central banks had 9,000 tons of gold in 2025, tightening supply dynamics. But it's risky speculative gold paper derivative trading that fuels the bubble, which is doomed to collapse in 2029. 2025. Dynamics for gold have have changed since the 2000s. Collaborating LLPL models to futures finds bubble formation predicted to last till 2029. The model demonstrates outstanding performance in predicting bubbles. There's strong evidence for the arrival of finite time singularity occurring on October 6, 2029. Bubble collapse is a certainty unless fixed. Retaliate 25. Physical gold funds hold derivatives, not vaulted bars. If investors have empty promises, wins and eligible gold match shortages, and no one knows how much is least pledged or simply missing. It's because they're trading from 900 to 1. Gold bubble isn't a risk, it's a mathematical certainty. Promises attached from reality always collapse. Lucky the EU's Basel III regulations saw, for instance, stable physical gold and limits paper trading. Head 25. Basel III regulations from the EU ensure bank assets and sources are withstanding stress. Regulatory changes in Basel III transition from paper trading to physical focused systems, providing a pathway for systematic deflation. London's current risky systems allow banks to maintain small reserves while trading enormous paper. The model that Basel III now penalizes. Basel III requires physical metal backing, eliminating the paper system, ensuring that contract prices more accurately reflect market realities and speculative positioning. It's legally binding, EC24. Basel III standards apply to all EU banks. London's the linchpin, WC 2017. London has been the center of gold trading and sets the global benchmark for gold. London also enjoys a time zone advantage. The gold collapse is severe, especially the UK, country that hoards gold, a mere 13. If the next big crash came from gold, it wouldn't just be about money. A gold collapse could expose the fragility of belief itself. Nations hoarding gold-backed savings would face sharper shocks. Their financial cushions could lose value overnight. Central banks are uniquely vulnerable now, part 24. Central banks' gold purchases have reached levels not seen since 1960. In 2023, central banks bought a record of 1,200 tons of gold, the highest level in 35 years, part of a broader strategy by central banks of gold to play a more central role. Asset collapse caused a recession, World Bank 15. Banking problems trace to a decreased value of bank assets. When a major decline in asset values would pause to demand their money back, and crisis occurs when many banks hit by the same outside shock fall. One bank spreads to other banks in the system, linked to economies in deep recession, rapidly spreading to other countries with no apparent vulnerabilities. Decline sparks great power war. Branch 21. Slow growth makes it hard to keep the public happy. Fearing upheaval makes national cards like the US, Russia, and France undertaking military intervention with the fear of decline from motive urgent expansion led to history's most gruesome wars. The next crisis is uniquely bad. Head struggles and debt burdens. Set 24. Amid hegemony, the entity uses power to contain shocks. When powers contested countries battle to make it hard to stem contagion. The impact is extinction. Curve 25. Actions could escalate. International tensions could lead to leaders decide whether they're better off fighting than negotiating. Nuclear weapons could be used with a famine caused by nuclear winter, likely to reach extinction. Bioweapons have the potential to cause an existential pandemic. Our second contention is Asgard. The new UK Asgard program allows machine, air, and overconfidence to escalate to flash flood and preemptive strikes. Verse 25. Britain's plan for defense AI makes forces 10 times more lethal. An AI-enabled Britain's targeting web enables faster identification, will lead to the erosion of moral restraints and undermine precautions. Comprehensive and up-to-date data is hard to come by. AI models hallucinate outputs and become a flash due to erroneous indications of attack of computer. And Commander's prioritize rapid response over thorough analysis. System give leaders false impressions and capabilities linked to overconfidence, encourage preemptive attacks. The UK shapes global norms in military AI. Asgard skips human checks and deployed on Russian border. Core 25. Asgard is designed to connect decision makers on land, sea, air, and space. Any sensors enabled by AI to identify targets before it might take days. Now take seconds. Visual justice system is run without human oversight and allows AI to operate independently. Cut the card there. That independently triggers Russian preemption. Horowitz 19. Countries for aggression using laws and machines could quickly knock at their ability to retaliate by undermining nuclear terms. The ability to target ballistic missiles, submarines, or sea systems could create first strike incentives. The plan for forces legally binding legislation which bans Asgard. The affirmative clause 123 accept unacceptable risk systems or compromise provisions of the EU AI Act. Values fundamental rights or pose unacceptable harm to individuals. Examples: lethal autonomous weapons. National security exemptions are superseded and irrelevant. Goals 24. The national security exemptions apply solely to purely governmental policies without engaging in any private sector. The AI Act goes under CJEU, which is part of a EU primary law, thus overriding the AI Act. Agencies like funding and capabilities to develop systems of the industry decision to develop separate AI purely national for national security for the EU might not be profitable. It gets implemented in 2 years. BA 25. Asgard forms a wider digital targeting web across the UK's forces by 2027. Adherence is the first step to accession as ECND finds candidate countries have to accept EU law, part of their legislation. Adoption and implementation are the basis of assessment negotiation. I mean, the moment you affirm, you end up stopping this insane AI. The UK doesn't thump. Human control, 125. UK requires all unmanned systems to integrate their situational awareness. Decisions remain squarely in human domain. Operators override autonomous function. Ethical judgments remain under human control. But when you end up going into the negation, you stick with the status quo, which pushes independent AI to make functions which escalate Russia. Cross.
No, it's citizen.
Whatever you
Listen. I'll take the first question. When is your WGC evidence from?
Which WGCN?
Calling London the linchpin of gold trade.
2017.
Wait, so right now in 2025, how much gold does London trade compared to other countries? What's its global ranking in gold trade?
We tell you it's right now London banks are uniquely specific because they're hoarding gold at an unprecedented rate. We read you multiple evidence. First, telling you that London is defying economic logic by getting 5,000 pounds of more gold.
Wait,
and
but
on top of that, we tell you it receives a time zone advantage.
Really
makes it
quick,
uniquely
really
specific.
quick.
Yeah.
The whole contention is built on the fact that like gold trade is really unstable, right?
Yeah.
But
The current paper
if
derivative
London's trade is only 41st in the entire globe, how is it ever going to make an impact when there's 40 other countries? Wait, a quick follow-up to that too.
Wait,
Just
you
a
just
quick
asked a
follow-up.
question, so I'll like to
Wait,
respond
I just
to that
want to
first.
clarify on something really quick before we move on.
It's your question. What are you
Yeah,
clarifying?
can I ask you what other countries or organizations use Basel III? Besides
EU
EU.
countries.
Besides EU.
I don't know, would you like to enlighten me?
Okay, cool. That's all I need. You can have a question.
Okay, so back to your whole point about how they rank 41 in trade. Our argument isn't about trade specifically, it's about the gold market, which we tell you London is the linchpin, but specifically that banks right now are actually getting more gold because it is defied economic logic.
But your linchpin
I
evidence
will
is from
take-
2017, so you can't even buy that.
And we
You
all,
can have a
we
question.
also, I mean, if you don't provide us a counter, there's nothing to do. But
It's
again,
literally the date, but fine.
okay. Let's go on to your regulatory whiplash convention, right? More specifically, when you talk about uncertainty, do you have any evidence talking about rejoining the EU specifically leading to uncertainty, or do you just
Yeah,
analyze the
obviously.
EU?
Wait, you have to look at the fact that when Brexit or Britain first left the EU, literally led to 170 billions in losses.
No, I'm not talking about leaving.
Wait,
I'm talking
yeah,
specifically
because
about
you have to
rejoining.
understand the reason it left or cost 170 billion. It's because there's regulation uncertainties between the EU and the UK. They have different regulations.
Yeah,
But
again,
now
you're not
switching,
really answering
could I
the
finish
question.
my point
Yeah.
if you want an answer? The whole point is switching regulations is what causes companies to bleed. So when the UK, we have evidence on this, when the UK has completely different regulations than the EU, switching back to EU regulations costs billions. And when we also say it takes well over 10 years, that's the amount of time they bleed for. But we spent a minute. Let me take a question.
Actually, I would
Talk
just
to
like
me.
to ask a follow-up because you spent a minute 24 in the last one. But more specifically, in your case, your Wolf 24 evidence, although you don't highlight, it specifically says that should the effect not be made to rejoin the European Union, it would create a host of new damages and uncertainties.
Wait.
What you do when you cut the card is you highlight the part that says rejoin, but you don't highlight the part before saying not to rejoin, which would lead to
Wait, that's
uncertainty.
completely missing the point. The
So
whole
isn't your
point-
case saying that if we don't rejoin, we'll also see uncertainty per your Wolf 24
wait,
evidence?
that's completely wrong. Because the whole reason right now is
It's
that we
on
have a
slide 6.
because the whole reason right now is like there's regulation uncertainty 10 years after leaving the EU. Because it like Brexit isn't a slow process, right? It took 4 years from 2016 to 2020 to actually leave. That led to EU regulation uncertainties. Uncertainties still exist right now, but they're significantly less. That's what you have to understand. Now switching back to EU regulations after all of that, that's what creates more uncertainty. But that's wrong.
Alright, the crowd.
We'll take running prep, we'll let you know when you take.